Picture a hospital room anywhere in the modern world. A patient sits across from their doctor describing symptoms: chronic pain in the lower back. The doctor orders an MRI, finds a herniated disc, prescribes medication for inflammation and perhaps physical therapy targeting that specific area. The symptom gets treated, the disc might even heal. But 6 months later, the patient returns with a different problem: digestive issues now, then headaches, then anxiety. Each symptom treated separately, each prescription addressing one isolated malfunction, as if the human body were nothing more than a machine with replaceable parts. Now picture a dusty road in 1st century Galilee. A woman approaches Jesus bent over, unable to stand straight for 18 years. The religious leaders watching expect him to say a prayer, to perform some ritual. Instead, Jesus does something that made no sense to anyone observing. He does not just address her spine, he speaks to her entire being. He acknowledges her spirit, touches her physical body, addresses the emotional weight she has carried, and releases what he calls a spirit of infirmity. And immediately she stands straight, completely whole, not just physically corrected but restored at every level of her existence. For 2,000 years, we read these stories as miracles, as supernatural exceptions to natural law, as things that happened back then but could not possibly apply to how healing works now. Except something remarkable has happened in the last 30 years. Modern medicine has finally discovered what Jesus knew all along. They have a name for it now. And when you understand what that name means, every healing story in the Gospels will suddenly make perfect sense. Right now, before we go further, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because what you are about to discover will completely change how you understand not just ancient healing but your own body's capacity for restoration. The term that modern medicine uses is biopsychosocial model. It sounds clinical, academic, distant, but what it describes is revolutionary. For the first time in modern medical history, the scientific establishment is admitting that you cannot treat physical symptoms in isolation. Every illness, every disease, every pain in your body is connected to three inseparable dimensions: the biological, what is happening in your tissues and cells and chemistry; the psychological, what is happening in your thoughts and emotions and mental patterns; and the social, what is happening in your relationships and environment and community context. These three dimensions do not just influence each other, they are completely interwoven. You cannot change one without affecting all three. A patient with chronic back pain is not just carrying physical inflammation. They are carrying stress that tightens muscles. They are carrying unresolved emotional trauma that the body stores as tension. They are carrying the weight of a work environment that demands too much or relationships that provide no support. Treat only the physical disc problem and you have treated almost nothing. The pain will return because the other dimensions remain unchanged. This is not alternative medicine. This is not New Age theory. This is now the official position of leading medical institutions around the world. The World Health Organization, the American Psychological Association, top medical schools are all teaching future doctors that healing requires addressing the whole person, not just the presenting symptom. And here is what makes this so staggering. When you go back and read the healing accounts in the Gospels with this framework, you realize Jesus was operating from the biopsychosocial model 2,000 years before modern science discovered it. Every single healing he performed addressed multiple dimensions simultaneously. Take the paralyzed man lowered through the roof by his friends. Before Jesus touches his body, before he addresses the physical paralysis, what does he say? Your sins are forgiven. The religious leaders are outraged. What do sins have to do with paralysis? What does spiritual and emotional burden have to do with physical disability? Everything. Jesus is addressing the psychological and spiritual dimension first because he knows that true healing cannot happen if guilt and shame remain lodged in this man's identity. Only after releasing that burden does he tell the man to stand. Or consider the woman with the issue of blood hemorrhaging for 12 years, broke from spending everything on physicians who could not help her. She touches the edge of his garment and power flows out of Jesus. He feels it, but he does not let her disappear into the crowd. He stops everything and asks who touched him. Why? Because physical healing alone is not enough. This woman has been declared unclean for 12 years. She has been isolated from community, cut off from worship, treated as spiritually contaminated. Her social dimension is completely destroyed. So Jesus does not just heal her blood flow, he publicly calls her daughter. He restores her social identity. He reintegrates her into community. He heals the whole person. The man born blind receives sight, but Jesus also defends him against religious authorities who interrogate him. Physical healing plus social restoration. The leper is cleansed and immediately told to show himself to the priest so he can be declared clean and return to society. Physical healing plus social reintegration. The demon-possessed man is freed and then sent back to his hometown to tell what happened. Spiritual liberation plus social purpose. Over and over the same pattern. Jesus never treats symptoms in isolation. He always addresses the biological, the psychological, and the social dimensions together. He always heals the whole person. Now let me show you why this matters for you right now. The medical system you interact with today was built on a model called Cartesian dualism. The philosopher Descartes convinced the Western world that mind and body are completely separate. The body is a machine. The mind is something else entirely. Medicine took the body. Religion took the soul. And for 400 years, doctors have treated human beings as biological machines that occasionally malfunction. This is why your doctor has 12 minutes to see you. This is why treatment means finding the broken part and targeting it with drugs or surgery. This is why you can be declared physically healthy while feeling completely unwell in every other dimension of your existence. But the model is collapsing. It is collapsing under the weight of chronic illness that does not respond to isolated treatment. It is collapsing under mental health crises that medication alone cannot resolve. It is collapsing under the evidence that stress causes inflammation, that loneliness impacts immune function. That childhood trauma literally changes gene expression. The body is not separate from the mind. Your physical health is not separate from your emotional state. Your symptoms are not random malfunctions. They are messages from a system trying to tell you that something in your whole life needs attention. And Jesus knew this. He did not need peer-reviewed studies. He did not need brain scans showing how trauma affects the nervous system. He operated from a complete understanding of human nature that Western civilization spent 4 centuries trying to deny. When he healed, he touched bodies with his hands, physical dimension. He spoke words that reframed identity and released shame, psychological dimension. He reintegrated people into community and gave them purpose, social dimension. Every time, without exception. Let me take you deeper into how this actually works in your body right now. Modern research in psychoneuroimmunology, the study of how psychology affects neurology and immune function, has discovered something extraordinary. Your thoughts produce chemicals. When you think a stressed thought, your hypothalamus releases corticotropin, which signals your pituitary gland, which signals your adrenal glands to dump cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream. These hormones are useful for short-term danger. But when stress becomes chronic, when your thoughts are constantly anxious or afraid or angry, your body stays flooded with stress chemistry. And that chemistry does specific, measurable damage. Cortisol suppresses immune function. It raises blood sugar, it increases blood pressure, it breaks down muscle tissue, it interferes with digestion. Over time, chronic stress chemistry creates the perfect conditions for disease. Inflammation, autoimmune disorders, metabolic dysfunction, cardiovascular problems. Your thoughts are not separate from your body. Your mental patterns are creating your physical conditions. This is not metaphor, this is biochemistry. Now watch what Jesus does with the paralyzed man again. Your sins are forgiven. He is not performing a religious ritual. He is releasing the psychological burden that has been triggering stress chemistry in this man's system for years. Guilt and shame are some of the most powerful stress triggers that exist. They create a constant state of internal threat. The nervous system cannot relax. The body cannot heal. By releasing that burden, Jesus is changing the internal chemistry. He is shifting the man from a state of chronic stress to a state where healing becomes possible. And then, in that shifted state, he commands the physical healing. Stand up and walk. The sequence matters. The whole person approach matters. You cannot just command a chronically stressed body to heal. You have to address what is creating the stress. You have to change the psychological and social conditions that are keeping the body in a state of defense. Modern medicine is finally admitting this. Cognitive behavioral therapy for chronic pain is now standard treatment because changing thought patterns actually changes pain perception. Social support groups for cancer patients improve survival rates because connection affects immune function. Trauma therapy resolves physical symptoms that no amount of physical treatment could touch because the body was storing the unresolved experience as tension and inflammation. Jesus was not doing something supernatural that violates natural law. He was working with the actual nature of how human beings are designed. We are not machines. We are integrated systems where every dimension affects every other dimension. And true healing requires addressing all dimensions together. This is why he asked questions. He did not just pronounce healing from a distance like a magician casting spells. He engaged people. What do you want me to do for you? He asked the blind man. The question seems absurd. Obviously he wants to see, but Jesus is doing something crucial. He is engaging the man's will, his agency, his psychological participation in his own healing. He is not treating a passive body. He is inviting a whole person into their restoration. He touched people constantly. In a culture where sick people were considered untouchable, where diseased bodies were avoided as unclean, Jesus touched them. Why? Because touch is not just physical contact. Touch communicates value. Touch says you are not disgusting, you are not other, you are worthy of connection. The social and psychological impact of his touch was as important as any physical transfer of healing power. He was treating the whole person. And he sent people back into community. He did not create dependents who needed to stay near him for ongoing healing. He restored them to full function in every dimension. Go home to your family, return to the temple, tell your town what happened. He was reintegrating them into the social dimension that their illness had severed, because he knew that physical health without social connection is not wholeness. A healed body that remains isolated is not a healed person. Now think about the implications for your life. You have symptoms, everyone does: pain, fatigue, anxiety, digestive problems, sleep issues, chronic conditions that doctors have given you diagnoses for but no real solutions. You have been treating these as isolated malfunctions. You have been looking for the pill or the procedure that will make the symptom go away. And maybe sometimes it works temporarily, but the symptom returns or a new symptom appears because you are not addressing the whole system. What is happening in your thoughts? What beliefs are you carrying that create constant stress? What shame or guilt or fear is running in the background of your mind, flooding your body with chemistry that prevents healing? This is the psychological dimension. You cannot heal your body while your thoughts are poisoning it. What is happening in your relationships? Are you isolated? Are you in toxic dynamics that create constant threat response? Do you have support, or are you carrying everything alone? This is the social dimension. Your nervous system is designed to regulate through connection with other nervous systems. Without safe relationships, your body stays in defense mode. Healing becomes nearly impossible. What is happening in your environment? Is your work sustainable, or is it grinding you down? Is your daily life aligned with your actual values, or are you performing a role that violates something essential in you? Environmental mismatch creates chronic stress that your body experiences as threat, and chronic threat means chronic inflammation. These dimensions are not separate issues to deal with after you fix your physical health. They are the source of your physical symptoms. Treat them and the body can heal. Ignore them and no amount of medical intervention will produce lasting change. Jesus understood this perfectly, and now, 2,000 years later, science is catching up. The biopsychosocial model is not a contradiction of the healing stories in Scripture. It is a confirmation. Jesus was not violating the laws of health. He was operating from a complete understanding of them, an understanding that Western medicine lost and is only now beginning to recover. There is another layer to this that we need to explore. Jesus often connected healing with faith. Your faith has made you well, he said it repeatedly. For centuries, we interpreted this as a religious requirement. You have to believe the right things about God or healing will not work. But that is not what is happening. Faith in the way Jesus used it is not intellectual belief. It is a state of trust that shifts your entire physiology. When you are in faith, when you trust that you are safe, that you are held, that restoration is possible, your nervous system shifts out of threat response. Your body moves from sympathetic activation, the fight or flight state, into parasympathetic activation, the rest and restore state. Only in parasympathetic mode can your body heal. Digestion works properly. Immune function activates. Tissue repair happens. Cell regeneration occurs. All healing happens in the parasympathetic state. Fear, doubt, chronic worry, these keep you locked in sympathetic activation. Your body is preparing for danger, not for healing. So when Jesus says your faith has made you well, he is not talking about religious belief. He is talking about the physiological state that trust creates, a state where healing becomes possible. This is why he told people, do not be afraid, just believe. He was not giving spiritual platitudes. He was giving medical instructions. Your fear is keeping your body in a state that prevents healing. Shift into trust and your physiology changes. Now healing can happen. Modern medicine confirms this. Patients who trust their treatment have better outcomes than patients who do not, even when receiving identical treatment. The psychological state affects the biological result. Placebo effects are real, measurable, and powerful because belief changes chemistry. Jesus was not tricking people with placebo. He was activating the body's actual healing capacity by shifting people into the psychological and spiritual state where that capacity could function. He treated the whole person because only the whole person can heal. Now let me show you something that will challenge everything you think about why healing does not always happen. There are people who came to Jesus and were not healed. There are people who asked and did not receive. The Bible does not hide this. In his own hometown, Jesus could not do many miracles because of their unbelief. Why? If he had supernatural power, why would local opinion matter? Because healing is not magic. It is not an external force that overrides natural law. It is an activation of the body's design when all dimensions are aligned. In his hometown, people saw him as just the carpenter's son. Their social framing of him made trust impossible. Without trust, their bodies stayed in defense. Without the psychological shift, the biological healing could not activate. It was not that Jesus lost power. It was that the whole person conditions for healing were not present. This is critical to understand because it means that when healing does not happen, it is not because God is punishing you, or because you do not have enough faith, or because you did something wrong. It means that somewhere in the biological, psychological, or social dimensions, the conditions for healing are being blocked. Maybe trauma is keeping your nervous system locked in threat. Maybe isolation is preventing the regulation that connection provides. Maybe beliefs you absorbed in childhood are creating constant shame chemistry. These are not moral failures, these are conditions that need addressing. And here is the hope: if healing requires the whole person, then you have access points for change in every dimension. You cannot always change your diagnosis, but you can change your thoughts, you can address your trauma, you can build connection, you can alter your environment, and as you shift these dimensions, you change the conditions in your body. You move toward the state where healing becomes possible. Modern integrative medicine is now built on this understanding. The best treatment centers no longer just give chemotherapy or prescribe pills. They include therapy for psychological processing. They include support groups for social connection. They include nutrition and movement and sleep optimization for biological support. They include meaning-making and purpose work for spiritual dimension. They treat the whole person because they have finally learned what Jesus demonstrated every single time he healed someone. You cannot fix one part and expect the whole to be well. If this is landing for you, if something in you is recognizing truth, comment the words "I am a whole person" right now. Let that declaration mark this moment. Let it signal to your entire system that you are done treating yourself as a collection of broken parts. You are an integrated being, and your healing will be integrated too. Think about the man at the pool of Bethesda, paralyzed for 38 years. Jesus asks him, "Do you want to be well?" Another seemingly absurd question. Of course he wants to be well, but listen to the man's answer. He does not say yes. He explains why healing has not been possible. Someone else always gets into the pool first. He is focused entirely on external conditions, on his lack of help, on a system that has failed him. Jesus does not argue. He just gives a command. Get up, pick up your mat, and walk, and the man does. What happened? Jesus bypassed the psychological story that had kept this man paralyzed beyond his physical condition. The story of helplessness. The story of being a victim of circumstances. The story that healing depends on external conditions aligning perfectly. That story was creating a psychological state that reinforced physical paralysis. By commanding action, Jesus interrupted the pattern. He engaged the man's agency. He treated the psychological dimension that medicine could not touch. And in that shift, physical healing became possible. You have stories about why you cannot heal, why your condition is different, why your situation is too complex, why you have tried everything and nothing works. These stories are not necessarily false, but they're creating a psychological state that affects your biology. What if the story could change? Not through denial, not through pretending your challenges are not real, but through engaging your agency in different dimensions. You may not be able to change your diagnosis today, but you can change one thought pattern. You can reach out to one person for connection. You can make one choice that aligns with your true values instead of external expectations. These small shifts in the psychological and social dimensions create real changes in your biological state. Jesus healed the whole person because partial healing is not healing. A body without emotional peace is not well. A pain-free person without purpose is not whole. Physical health without relationship is not restoration. He knew that human beings are designed as integrated systems, and he treated them accordingly every single time. Modern medicine is finally arriving at the same conclusion, not because doctors suddenly got spiritual, but because the evidence became undeniable. Patients who are treated as whole people get better outcomes. Patients who participate in their healing actively do better than passive recipients. Patients who have their psychological and social needs addressed alongside their physical treatment show better recovery rates, fewer complications, and longer survival. The data is overwhelming. The whole person approach works because it aligns with how we are actually made. For 2,000 years, we have read the healings of Jesus as supernatural interventions, and perhaps they were, but not in the way we thought. The supernatural part was not that he violated natural law. The supernatural part was that he understood natural law more completely than anyone around him. He knew that humans are not machines with isolated problems. He knew that every symptom is connected to thoughts and relationships and purpose. He knew that true healing requires addressing all dimensions together, and he practiced medicine, if we can call it that, from that integrated understanding. You are not a broken machine. You are a whole person. Your symptoms are not random. They are signals from a system trying to tell you that something in your whole life needs attention. Maybe your body is asking you to address unresolved trauma. Maybe your pain is connected to relationships that are harming you. Maybe your illness is your system's way of forcing you to stop living in ways that violate your deepest values. These connections are not punishment, they are information. And here's the promise that Jesus demonstrated again and again. When you address the whole person, when you bring healing to all dimensions, your body has capacities you have not seen. Not because you are invoking magic, but because you are finally working with your design instead of against it. Your body wants to heal. That is what it is built to do. But it cannot heal in a state of chronic threat. It cannot heal when your thoughts are poison and your relationships are toxic and your life has no meaning. Change those conditions and you change everything. The biopsychosocial model that modern medicine now teaches is not new, it is ancient. It is what Jesus practiced every time he encountered someone who needed restoration. He saw whole people, he treated whole people, and whole people became whole, not just their bodies, their entire lives. So what do you do with this? You start where you are, you stop looking for the one pill or procedure that will fix everything while you change nothing else. You start asking different questions. What is my body trying to tell me through this symptom? What thoughts am I thinking that create stress chemistry? Where am I isolated and how can I build connection? What parts of my life are misaligned with who I actually am? These questions open doors that medical treatment alone cannot. And you bring everything to the process. Your body, yes, but also your mind and your relationships and your environment and your purpose. You treat yourself the way Jesus treated people, as a whole being whose healing requires attention to every dimension. This is not instead of medical care. This is the context that makes medical care actually effective. If you made it this far, you are ready. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications because the next video goes even deeper into specific practices for integrated healing. Like this video so others searching for answers can find it. And comment below, tell me which dimension, biological, psychological, or social, you realize you have been neglecting. That awareness is the beginning of true healing. Jesus always healed the whole person and never just the symptom. Modern medicine has finally caught up, and now you understand why. Your healing will not come from treating isolated parts, it will come from restoring the whole. You are not broken, you are a system that needs all its dimensions addressed. Start today, address one dimension you have been ignoring, watch what shifts. Your body has been waiting for you to understand. Now you do.